Okay, that's it. The little blue box is up to say we're live. Good evening, everybody in the chat room. Today is Tuesday, the 3rd of July, 2018. On the panel is our Patricia, Flat Earth Dude, and two guests, Indi Glow and Crrow777. So hello, everybody.
Hello, hello. This is Crow. Nice to be here.
It sure is. Thank you very much for joining us. I was talking to David, and I just thought that you would like to be in on this hangout, Crow. But just before we came on, you were talking about some things. Do you want to talk about what you were saying?
Well, just hearing what David had to say before we went live here, it's all very interesting. I think David hit it on the head right before you pushed the go button there. There's a shift in consciousness, and it's everywhere. We were doing a 4-part series on law on Crrow777 Radio, my podcast website. And as I went out into the world, I kept randomly bumping into people who had common law on their mind. So I think it's pretty clear there is a big shift going on. As I mentioned, episode 115 on Crrow777 Radio will go live this Thursday. We got the living man from Scotland, Robert Sproul, who has actually set up a common law court. As we did the 4-part series, people who were knowledgeable coming in tell us how we could conduct ourselves in court so we don't get beat up so badly all the time with all the fines and penalties courts like to impose on us. Each episode, there were big fights. People saying, no, that's not the right way to do it. Do it this way, do it that way. And we quickly figured out that there's like schools of thought on how to address the current legal situation we find ourselves in the Western world. But suffice it to say, I noticed a commonality in all of it. And I do think there is probably more than one way to skin a cat. I think David will probably speak to that. He just said a little bit about it. But at the end of the day, we actually have a common law court that we can look at in the world. So for everyone listening who wants to support this consciousness shift, there's a channel called Rob S. It's ROB, new word, ESS. This is the living man in Scotland who has basically created a common law court. And immediately out of the gate, they've taken on some big damn topics. One of the things that's been going on in Scotland is their equivalent to what we call social workers in the United States has been taking children away from families. And that's one of the first things they address. So it will be very, very darn interesting to see what the outcome of this. And if I'm not mistaken, common law courts are the only court of record. It doesn't seem like they're going to be able to ignore what's going on here.
Everything's gone a bit too much the other way now, hasn't it? Everything.
Well, I mean, you'll see you've got two people.
It's bad enough. It's bad enough as it was, but everything is just getting worse.
Well, in some ways, but it's how you gauge the world, isn't it? If you sit home and watch the news, yeah, it seems like the planet's on fire and we're all going to die tomorrow. But, if you go out into the world and just meet regular people, you understand there is, in fact, a consciousness shift. And people are going to come together in their own time. They'll wake up in their own time. But I think we've got a little momentum here. And as David's going to point out, there is absolutely a conscious shift where people are sick and tired of being pulled over by the police and fined for some nonsense, or drugged before the judge and penalties and all this stuff going on, ridiculous taxes being levied against people. I think people have about had it, and I think we're about to see a real run at trying to change these things for the better, for the common living man or woman.
Yeah, David.
Yes.
Yeah, David.
Hello there.
I know that you were just explaining it before, but say this thing about numbers and then, and what you wrote to.
Yeah. And what I wrote to who?
You wrote a message to Crow, didn't you, on his channel?
I left him. I gave him a heads up, saying that wow, the numbers. I am immersing myself in what's called a thought potentiality consciousness. I do not see myself living in a duality. I see myself living as the microcosm in the macrocosm. I am a crow. I do like your many subjects, cymatics, yes, Nikola Tesla and wave forms, and it's an eclectic mix. So with law, we find that law is not just legal, it's natural, it's everywhere. And mathematics, in my opinion, as I've found through my extensive research and the trust we've set up and the family that we've got going on the Facebook and the private domain on the .com, is that the mathematics are the science of nature, and the Fibonacci and the phi and the pi and so forth, and the CQV 1666 is prominent because 1.66 is a ratio of the human autonomy in the biology. So I've encompassed numbers throughout research in law primarily, and I've encompassed quantum mechanics and prayer, the divinity. The chat with Santos on Friday encapsulated some of that when he was talking about the 33 vertebrae and the righteousness and the Christ-like consciousness. But with numbers, Crow, 1111 shouts at me, and it has done for about 10 years. Synchronicities is how I relate to them, and I am spoken to indirectly through numbers. And numbers 111 and the number 3 are apparent, as I said off the chat previously. At this moment in time, the 1111 is still there, but it may come in the form of 1123 or 2323 or 1111. And when I see that, I have to stop and look and think and just see if there's anything apparent or on my mind or where I am or who I'm with and things like that. But I was a DJ, so numbers, MP3s, music, stuff like that. I was fascinated with gigabytes of storage, and I had a technological, past, as you like, and I should be a famous DJ somewhere on a white isle. How I've ended up doing this is not my choice. I've been directed here by, I don't know, a divinity, a consciousness, pathways, unbeknown choices to me, and these numbers are now 1, 1, and 3. And when Brother Astral said to me some days ago, there's this guy in the States, and he's into sovereignty and this, that, the other, check his channel out, and he says you need to look at a video, 100, 110, is one of his recent ones. So I was on chat with Astral, and I says, let's go and see. So we went over to Crow, your channel, and I had a look, and I went, hey, Admiralty, court, blah, 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 I'm in the wrong court, episode 111. Let's have a look at this. And I think it's in that episode, I found quite a lot of our technology, but very simplified, so I could reference that for you later. You had a guest on who was talking about, has the claim been verified? Are you going to force me to proceed? As the prosecution brought his checkbook, that one, but we'll stick a pin in that. And I was like, wow, episode 111. That's, and 777 is 2 and 1, and 2 and 1 adds up to 3. I'm like, this is, okay, this is a good thing for me. I'm starting to get excited. And the day after, I was talking to a trusted brother in the family, and he says that video with Santos and Sun and Moon was truly unique, Dave. It was like, it was well done, and Santos and the return of and his health and what he had to say, and where you talked about the master trust and so forth. He said, but did you see the numbers? And I said, no, I didn't. And what you on about? And he said, well, what time was it when you came in to talk to Santos? And I said, about 12:30, 1 a.m, I think, I'm not sure. And they said, no, when you talked to him on the video, you was introduced at 1 hour and 33 minutes, and you'd said you're having the number 1s and 3s. So I said, oh, yeah, I was, yeah. And very interesting, yeah. So I have these things, and they're called synchronicities. And they're like affirmations in a way. Yeah, I yield.
Thank you, David. David, something else that you've done. Tell Crow what you've been doing at court.
Well, we've done quite a bit in paperwork, but we have a Mackenzie friend option over here in the judicial domain. Do you have, may I ask before we go on, Crow, do you have, when you represent or represent yourself, do you have the option to take friends in and stuff in the States? Prosecution,
I'm not 100% sure. To be honest with you, I have not stood in front of the judge in more years than I can remember. I think you are allowed to bring people in with you, but one of the guests was saying you want to make sure that person's never an attorney, or basically the court views you as, a child that doesn't even know his own rights. That's really all I can add.
After this, when we chat, I've got on the .com and on the Facebook trust that we've got, the private domain, I've done a 30-page document about the words, the implied meaning and definition. So when we deal with the we call them de facto. They are de facto. They're not the private corporations. We are wary of them. Justice is not so much what goes down there. It's more of a place of business that we recognise is full of pitfalls and dangers. So we have in this country statutory codes that are governable to persons by the consent of the governed. That's the ethos behind that, legislation and ruling. So you have in America codes, dear, state codes, penal codes, is it? Your public law, that's what we tackle here. And public law is against persons, and we are not persons. God is not a respecter of persons or lawyers. You can see the testaments for that. So we are man. I man is how we would demonstrate presence in a court. And so we went to the magistrates, which are they're not a common law court because they're not sworn in. So they're not under oath. The prosecution probably hasn't brought his checkbook. They will try and force you to proceed with the hearing. They will be using the name in commerce without authority. They have no bonding behind the courts here, the district and the magistrates. They are operating, as we call as insolved, since about 2008. So there's no securities in the court, but there is a bond open. We used to go in there and we used to say things like, I demand to see your oath. I am not the surety for this debt. I do not have an international treaty. We was going in there, so 2 years ago probably, in the United Kingdom with this kind of argumentation for defence and representation for civil claims, and we wasn't winning, and our brothers and sisters were falling down. So we've gone back to the drawing board. We looked at, for the chat room, these guys might want to make a note, but we looked at Romley Stewart, Australia, Santos Bonacci, Know Thyself, also Australia, and a gentleman by the name of Frank O'Collins, Australia. Winston Trout. We've looked at the USA law and the English law and how the Constitution and how to fight it. Nobody's having any real remedy. So what we worked out is the governing guideline of the United Kingdom, the monarchy and her Elizabeth's court and Elizabeth's parliament and Elizabeth's systems, under the magistrates and the rule of law, are public statutory codes against persons, and we aren't them, because we've looked at the definitions of persons and worked everything out. So when we present in the magistrates, we notice on the what happens at the court, you get invited to go via a summons to your person in all caps. You'll know most of this, and some of this will be ringing true to you, but I don't know how much, so we'll carry on. And you are required to appear, and you are required to attend. So you might attend and appear as the all caps, and you've submitted to Admiralty law and the law of the sea, and the law and the man of the land has been bonded and agreed under, we call it joinder, non-disclosure, and you've agreed to be salvaged, and you would step into the bar of the court in England and go from land onto the sea and the Admiralty rule and law jurisdiction, unbeknown to you or knowingly, whichever, but mostly unbeknowing. So we didn't do that. We didn't use any of the court forms. We noticed them. We declined to fill in a statutory declaration, and we had go to a hearing at a magistrate's, which was a trial, even not a hearing, a trial, to go and defend and be cross-examined. And the traffic officer that laid claim had to be cross-examined. So we presented with the all caps and said that we was the authorised agent and representative in office. That's important for Mr. And I won't disclose the gentleman's name, the brother that I went down with, but we got admitted in, and we had to then, once we'd stated the capacity and status, as we call it in law, and how we was appearing and attending, they didn't like it, but that was how we started the hearing, the trial. And there was in the room, I'll lay the room out for you because I don't know how it is in the state. I have seen the natural man. I will eat fish, and he removed the magistrate. That was not like what we see, but 3 magistrates at the back which are going to judge. In front of them you have a clerk to the court who's got the bond open for the all caps name, and then you have a prosecution in the court. The traffic officer was present, myself, and the alleged driver. And for England, we know this now. We know that the law operates under assumptions You must make a note of that, guys, and look at the assumptions of law for the United Kingdom or your applicable landmass, and it operates under presumptions of law. And you should also try to make a note of your presumptions of law. And then you have maxims of law. These are the governing guidelines and rules in the code of conduct of law. And after the maxims of law, you then have equitable maxims. And if you don't know what equity is, then you're in trouble, because that's your saviour, to be fair. Sometimes, as a man, you use equity. So you have rights, and you have rights of use to things. And just because you was given something doesn't mean to say that you are it, even though the law assumes that you are it. It is a de facto corrupt system that runs on assumptions. It's a Roman civil law system. And we was told that you are innocent until proven guilty. Well, I hear today is the man David Jeremita, of the Jeremita clan, will testify that we can conclusively tell you through first-hand knowledge and evidence that we see it as thus. This establishment and the system and the crown of Westminster, London, with its square mile jurisdiction, this assumes and it makes you guilty by those what I've just said prior. That I told you to research and make a note of. And that is how then you need to defend, and you have to rebut the assumptions and presumptions of law. And if you submit an application form of which they will give you, and you sign it with full public liability as the Mr. All Caps, then goodbye, you failed. If you accept the charges and you go through there into that bar and you don't do anything, can you get salvage? You failed. If you argue it, and you argue it wrongly and cause the judge injury, vexation and malice, you failed, and you will claim damages from you. So there is only one true way to get justice. That is to not get a statutory judgment or a summary judgment, not to get a summary judgment from the court, because most I'm seeing are getting ill-advised, representing wrongly, committing joinder, using legalese, not signing with, without the liability, signing with full public liability. When I say without liability, I'm talking about the authorised agent representative in office, or as we do it under equity, we call it set law. You in America and elsewhere would call it executor, the executor of the trust, executor of the estate. What do you mean? I'm not dead. Well, you can be an executor of a living estate and a dead estate. That's what we call the CQV of 1666, Unum Sanctum, Pope Boniface and things like that. But I'll stick to the court. You go there and you deal with this language and this inception and these assumptions and presumptions, and you present right, and you don't contract, and you stand there. We took down some books that are called the CPR. They're called the Green Book for the chat room and the viewers. The barristers in the United Kingdom use Green Book. The lawyers use one called the White Book. You need to know what they are. That's the governing guidelines of the civil procedure rules and the court practice rules. These are not our rules. We're not in their society. This is the London Temple BAR Society. This is Roman. This is the Santos bit. You need to look at all of that, which we've confirmed on Friday. And we stood there steadfast. We stood there strong. There was a language in the court, guys. It's an invisible secret language. I will give you first-hand knowledge of that. This is how it went. My man's taken the stand. He's literally a man in the stand. That's who he is. And he's in a private capacity. He said his name was Thomas of the family Hogg when he was asked. They said, where is Mr. Thomas Hogg? Mr. Thomas Hogg is being represented here today by this man. He is not Mr. Thomas Hogg. Mr. Thomas Hogg is the driver, things like that. This is a made-up name giving you. This is how we did it. And then, obviously, we went in there and they didn't like it. We argued it all. And they went out after the cross-examination, and the prosecution had taken its line to question. And whilst the man was in the dock and doing the business and answering for his driver, the prosecution was looking at the magistrates, but talking to the man in the dock. And they said, hey up, the man in the dock says, when you address me, will you look me in the eye, please? So at this point, the magistrate was locked in eye contact with the prosecution. The prosecution was directing his line of questioning in a satirical manner to the driver's representative. And the driver's representative did right, and he acted in honour. And he said, excuse me, when you address me and you look me in the eye, please. Now, what was he saying? And they proceeded to go on about a driving infraction. And he said, and he asserted himself. So they took expert advice. It finished at 5-5. We went 2 hours head to head, toe to toe, honour, no malice, no vexation. no contract, knowingly, very, very, you know, articulately and concisely applying the rule of law. And they went out at 5 to 5. They came back at 25 past 5, Crow. And in England, the United Kingdom system, you know, the courts, they close at 5 p.m. So they did well to come out at 25 past 5 after half an hour. They deliberated. They took expert legal advice. You know, we was in suits. We was honourable. We used a notice of, what was it, a statement of truth and a notice, an affidavit, statement of truth to give to the court for the proof of evidence. When you make a claim, you need to have the evidence of claim, and it's called the burden of proof. So if you claim something to me, Crow, or the Sun and Moon claim something to me, I will ask for your proof of evidence and proof of claim, or the law will. And if you haven't got that, then there is no claim. The officer had a claim. Where was his proof? We called it into the court. It was a statement, a ticket, you know, and he assured us that that was valid. But we asked where the other evidence was, you know, because my man, as instructed and advised by me, gave also a statement of truth, notice, affidavit, his own truth, which can be uncontested in law. And that was it. That's matched, basically, the evidence and the claims. So there was reasonable doubt in the jury's mind, and the jury, we wish, the magistrate, sorry, and they came back, expert legal advice taken. Why did they discharge the claims? They discharged it because there was reasonable doubt in their mind, and that they could not irrefutably say right there in that court that this claim had happened. So because there was no proof of claim, and we had submitted a sworn affidavit, you know, truth, statement of truth, that was effectively the same as the officers. Now in law, equality is paramount, and evidence is what we need. So if we'd have done it the other way and just gone in and gone, hello, I'm Mr. John Smith, and I've come here today and I've come here to answer these charges, and they said, oh, are you John Smith? And he says, yeah, I'm John Smith, and John Smith steps into the dock, he's got no rights. He's just claimed the birth certificate name. That's what's on the certificate. And Crow, I'll finish with saying, if you have, or your person has a birth certificate, please look at the warning on the bottom of that. And it should be a warning from the state district of Washington, where you lot get, you lot, brothers and sisters of the state, get registered, sworn in. When you take your allegiance to the flag, it's to Washington, where the obelisk is. And the obelisk in London and the obelisk in the Vatican. That's your tri-effective crown, Triforce crown, and that's where it all begins. And registration is to the Queen and country and the monarchy, and your birth certificate will tell you that it is a warning at the bottom, your person's birth certificate, and it says not to be used as evidence of identity, because if you claim that name, just like it says elsewhere in the warnings, you claim that name in vain. You take the father's name and say, oh yeah, I'm John Smith. Well, that's it then, John Smith, that's the estate of which they own and claim, and you have consented to be that name. You have no rights other than the human rights and the public acts and statutes. I am David of the family Jeremita, and I am private. I have two legal persons. One is in all caps. He's used for commerce and UCC and trade. My lowercase name is used for private representation and private only, you know, and the all caps name is not mine. It's a clone of my family given name, because I'm no longer a Christian. So David is the given. I may have a middle, which would be attached by a hyphen between the end of David and the middle name. Then there'd be a semicolon after the middle name, and then the lowercase clan or estate name would be affixed there. So you denote that in the lower, you know, the lower capitals. And if you claim to be the Mr., as we said off air, you said something about claiming a title. The title that you claim, the Mr., is not the one you want, because look where Mr. comes from. It comes from miser. And, you know, certain things, that's your phonetics and your etymology. You need to back that up, and your language and definition of word. But yeah, I'll shut up now. I yield. That's enough. Thank you.
Wow. Rather a lot to do, isn't there, when you go to court then?
Well, it's what I'm finding interesting in all this is look what David just said and how much time it took out of his life to go in there and deal with this nonsensical system that tries to compel us to do things. But one of the interesting things that came out of the episodes we've done on this is the idea that if the jurisdiction of of a court that you're standing in becomes common law, then all those people that call themselves whatever they want to, the judge or anyone else in those official capacities, they become liable. In a typical court, for the most part in the United States, we've kind of decided that most of them are admiralty law courts. It does differ a little bit. Those people are immune to prosecution and other things, but once the jurisdiction is common law, that's different. And that's why I think what's going on in Scotland right now is so exciting, and also some of the tacks that people are taking. And the way David just explained that he went in and conducted himself honorably, which he'll understand why I said that, and stood up as a living man, and he succeeded. Look how much time out of his life it took. But the idea that when a common law court is the jurisdiction and those people become liable, if these are true things that can be demonstrated over and over, I think we're going to see a big shift, because I doubt if there's any judge sitting on any bench or any court clerk that wants to be liable. You know, we had some people come in to my forum on my website, on my podcast website, and they used to be work in the prison system here, and they were talking about some of the training they went through. One of the things they said was, in the prison system, the guards are instructed never to give personal information to the inmates, or they might find a lien on their house. And that's a very telling thing indeed. And some of the training manuals about how police should deal with sovereign citizens were posted on the forum, and it shows the disdain that the official system and the police have for the idea of sovereignty, which is ridiculous on the face of it. But nonetheless, even in that police handbook, teaching them how to deal with sovereign citizens, basically they call us terrorists, it says at the bottom, and be careful, you could get a lien on your house. And they never explain why. And this, to me, really shows the power of common law. I'm not suggesting that we should go take family men who happen to be police or happen to be working in the court and put them in the fire. That's not what I'm suggesting at all. But what I am suggesting is, if we get to a point where living men and women are responsible for their actions and they're liable for their actions, I think we can really make headway. And people who are doing what David are doing, people like the living man Robert Sproul in Scotland, I think we're seeing a real change in the weather here. Only time will tell, but it's an exciting time.
Yeah, you were saying that it's a common law court in Scotland. Yeah, is that right? Right.
So, you know, this is where I get in trouble. I have the vocabulary I have. I always want to say people or person, but I know better. So human beings from the community have set up the court. Human beings act in the roles that are required by a common law court, which we'll define in episode 115 on Thursday. And instead of having like a judge, you know, judge somebody, what happens is a jury of your peers, basically 12 people from the community who are chosen at random, so that there's no chance of stacking the deck. They're the people who come to the conclusion in that common law court. And not only that, if a single person sitting within those 12 decides there's something wrong, the whole case ends. There were so many fascinating things that we covered. But it's going to be very interesting for me to see people like David going at it in the way they are. Some of the guests we've had on, where they walk into basically an admiralty law court and then wrangle to switch the jurisdiction over to common law. There are other ways, the way you conduct yourself, which is more closely aligned with how David's gone at it, and then the idea of setting up a common law court, where basically in common law, here's another fascinating thing. Say a social worker wrongly takes a child from a family. If a common law court, the way I understand it, is brought together, and I don't know if summons is the right word, they summons that person who is acting as the social worker, and they do not show up, a common law court recognizes that as an admission of guilt. And so it's going to be very, very interesting to see where it says. And again, Robert Sproul in Scotland, one of the first cases that they brought before their self-made common law court was a child that had been taken from a family. So all eyes on Scotland.
May I interject, sister? Yeah, is it good?
Go for it, David.
A sovereign citizen, Crow. Listen, brother. They're saying this with love and respect. That's what we call an oxymoron in the Oxford Dictionary. You can look up oxymoron. The language I speak to you is only Anglo Saxon Anglo babble. I'm not going to use legalese and speak to you. You know, I'm communicating as a man to you, as a brother. And Anglo-Saxons understand, you know, oxymoron in our terminology is a confusion. It's a psyop to make you wary of the word sovereign. So we're told the only sovereign in the United Kingdom is Elizabeth, yes, and that's the only way it shall be forever. And we've decreed that, but unfortunately, the United Kingdom is for everybody. It's a trust, and we have proven that, okay? And the police and the magistrates and the Labour Party and the Liberal Democrats and all of the constabulary metropolitans are listed on Dun and Bradstreet, yes, and also on another one that you can find, Companies House, judges, certain courts, yes, they're not allowed to trade because they're not listed and stuff. But this sovereign citizen movement that's going off in the States, you've got a lot of stateside contacts. So I'm telling you this, Crow, because it's important, and I'm going to give you the source and claims of my evidence for that. The sovereign citizen terminology is an oxymoron for everyone, and you need to know you are either one or the other. So a citizen is a public statutory person. It's your all caps. It's who belongs to the Washington state flag. Whoever it is that sworn allegiance to that flag has become a citizen, a naturalized alien, in fact, is the word that we term. If you know, I'm not going to go too deep today, but I'd like to see if there's a potential of another chat after, Crow. I'd like to link up if you want. But oxymoron, naturalized alien, citizen, Washington flag, done, public, sovereign, one who is a self-ruling monarch. You are not an anarchy. You know, anarchy comes from monarchy and anarchy, but anarchy, we're told, is the Sex Pistols. It's Sid Vicious. It's you know, I am an entity, all this kind of stuff. You know, funny coloured hair and piercings. Well, no, we look at what a monarch is. Look at the mon and the ark. One ark. We look at the arks, the Ark of the Covenant. That's an integral word, ark. And you know, the sovereignty is that I, David, if you tell me that I don't know the law, my honour, then I am I am a tribunal stood before you. You want to know who I am? I am a sovereign, self-governing, sentient being. I am a tribunal. I am the mind, the soul, and the spirit, and I know the laws of the land. Yes, I have faith that the Creator will have judged and forgiven me for any sins that I may have committed. Now, I'm not here today to contract with anybody. I'm not here to be vexatious. Now, we can find out if it's going to be a common law court or not, and we know it's not. So there are no such things as a common law court at present, and respect and love to Robert Sproul for what he's trying to do there. But what I will say is that we would like to look into this, and we would like to discover. I'll put it out there in public. We are not saying that common law court is wrong, and we're not saying that we know it all. What we're saying is sovereign citizen. You must look at that, guys. They've got you there. They're trying to do an oxymoron. Be one or the other. If you are driving a wagon and you are delivering Domino's pizzas and you are clocked in and you are wearing a uniform and you are getting paid credit notes from the Federal Reserve Bank of America or England, and you're clocked on in England doing it, or Australia, you are in commerce. You are clocked on, and you've claimed, you know, the all caps public name. So you're a citizen, an employee, and you're subject to all the public statutory codes. But you're still a man driving the truck. So how do they get that? They get you by, you are using your driver to drive that truck and act in commerce. The man is not acting in commerce. The man is the man. But you don't know you've got more than one person. So your persons are given to you. So you are sovereign always. And you are just commercing now. So when you get stopped and they say, hey, have you got your papers, license, insurance, all of this? Yes, I've got them. Are you the driver of the vehicle? Well, no, I'm not the driver of the vehicle. I am David, and I am here today in this seat, and I'm holding the wheel, but I'm actually just David, and I have a driver. His name is Mr. David, blah, blah, blah. And here it is. I'll pass over my driving license card, which belongs to my driver, because I, man, do not need to be licensed for nothing, because I am, you know, the tribunal, and that's how we angle it there. And we are under the Creator as sovereign beings. And when we start giving lords and my lordship authority over us and giving these invisible laws, authority, and start bowing to them, then you're in trouble, because you may have gone into dishonor with the creator, and he tells you, these clues are there. So you said sovereign citizen. I hope that clarifies it in that term. If you are going out to see your girlfriend, Crow, and this officer stops you and you happen to be traveling and using your rights to travel, under the creator, you are not the driver and it is not a vehicle. I would say, hello there, officer. Yeah, what's up? Oh, your tail light's out. Can I have your papers? I'm going to stop you under, give you a citation or whatever. I'll be like, well, I'm going to go and see my girlfriend. I'm running a bit late. You've told me my light's out. Can I be on my way? Check me in a bit and it'll be done. I'll get this done in no time. Thank you. You've saved me. Perhaps, some harm, injury and loss. Let's leave it at that. It's my wish to be on my way. Oh, well, you're acting a bit strange there. What's up with you? Have you got something to hide? No, I'm late. My missus cooking me dinner. Just finished servitude. I need to be cracking on. Off. Am I free to go? Well, what's your name? My name's David. What's your full name? My full name's David. Are you being funny with me? No, officer. My full name's David. My given. What's your surname? Ah, well, my family name is Jeremita. Okay. Are you the driver of this vehicle? No and no. What? What do you mean? Well, this is an iron horse. Yes, Crow, iron horse. We say iron horse because vehicle and car are part of their dictionary. And, well, not dictionary, they put it in the legalese, Black's Law, definition, traveller, driver, Road Traffic Management Act of the United Kingdom Trust. Yeah, not the Land Mass England has got that for its persons and citizens. So if you are travelling to see your girlfriend and you say to the officer, yes, I'm the driver, now you've just become liable to be subject to the fines and forfeitures and fees. If you say that you are private and you are going to see your missus and your name's David and that's it, it's an iron horse, it's private property and you are travelling, then they need to let you get on your way. And if you say to them then, I will not want to contract with you today, there is no crime here, am I free to go? Am I being detained? Such things as, and because what they're doing here, they're putting on the uniform and they're coming out and they're purporting to keep you safe, but they're trying to get their hand in your pocket and get some fiscal revenue for the Crown of London. Now, if we look at these as public servants and think they're out there to keep us safe, then why are they stopping man and getting him to join up with his driver or vehicle under the Public Acts and then get him to pay money? That's not what we signed up for, pal. You know what I mean? This is England 2018. You think man's going to work two jobs, pay all these taxes, get all these homegrown attacks thrown on him, and children get taken away into forced adoption. Man's getting locked up in a prison for civil issues, and now we're putting our hand in our pocket because the man in black says we've got to pay him. I don't think so, pal. You know what I mean? It's really bad. It really is. And the common law court, it's good for so much, but if you've got a private issue and you want to bring out some promissory notes or negotiable instruments, or you might have a trust, then you need a private court setting for that. And certain things in a court will need to go to a higher court for allodial title and claims in certain things. But yeah, I yield now and let you give some reflection on any of that, get some input. I'll be interested to see what you think.
Well, I would just add, the only reason I brought up the word sovereign citizen is because that's what's literally in the training manuals for the police and the prison guards. In my view, citizen is just another word for slave, basically. The idea of sovereign, I agree with you. The word alone, it's what all human beings should be. We should all be adults responsible for our own actions. But I think it was episode 113 with Alfonso, where he was demonstrating, and he did have some links and other things to back it up, that you can file before you walk in that courtroom and change the jurisdiction to common law. There were people who came in on the tail of that show who had issues with it. But what I'm finding in this whole law thing is where people have learned what they've learned, they're very defensive of that method. And like I said before, what I noticed was there was a commonality through almost all of it. And again, common law at one time apparently was the no-nonsense way we did business. If you haven't harmed anyone, if you haven't caused injury, if you haven't broken a contract, these types of simple ideas, everyone can understand there is no crime. Part of the problem with some of what you're explaining here is, I don't know how the police are over in your part of the world, but the police here in my part of the world are just a couple ticks away from being like militia, militaristic. It's weird. And they're being trained this way. And so when people are pulled over, when they begin to do the things that we've talked about, that you were talking about, it can get out of hand really quick depending on the police officer you've got. And when you see handbooks that are telling them to call for backup, that what they call sovereign citizens are basically against every law, against their country, again, you know, it's nonsense. You can see the problems at hand. For my part, I certainly hope that the common law way is a viable path, because if that is true, and if it gets demonstrated out, what it means is all these people sitting in black robes or being court clerks, they can be liable for what they do. And if that was true, I think we'd see a big change in how people are treated. I don't think it would be such a, you know, a mill of people being funneled in, fined, jailed, whatever, if those people doing these things became liable. So that's where my hope is. But again, my eyes are on Scotland right now, and I've done the 4 back shows, so I'm waiting to see what pans out. I'm waiting to see the proof in the pudding. What can we actually watch happen and know that it worked?
Yeah, and I'm behind that. Oh, go on, sister. Go on, sorry.
No, I just ummed. You go, David.
The next thing I got to bring to your attention then is I'm not being hostile or anything like that. I want this to work, and we're here to give information away for free and not to profit from it, and to do it honourably. And I've got you know, a big team behind this, and we've been doing it only 3 years.
David, you've given up your work job, haven't you? You've given up working out.
Yeah, I was just going to tell him. Yeah, but big team, and I've entered into what's called a sacred contract here, and yeah, we've set up a good little, you know, safe community. And what happened a few months ago was there was an incident in Liverpool. I'm going to be careful with the data again, but there's an incident there, and someone come into our Facebook group. We're paralegals, basically. We're not solicitors or lawyers and that. We're paralegals. They come in the group, said there's an issue, Liverpool, there's a baby. They've got some issues. They've been to court and they want to get it out of the hospital. It's in danger. It's on life support, and they've put the birth certificate into a common law court, and they've tried to protect it. And then what happened was they had to go back to court, and well, they went back to the hospital and said they've claimed and they've done this and so forth, and the hospital ignored them. So they had to go back to another high court with a barrister. They sacked their original barristers, and they got some more barristers. This was a worldwide broadcast case. It was within the last 6 months. And yeah, we got the news that there was a dangerous situation, and the certificate had gone into common law court. The Vatican had a air defense ministry plane on standby. The father had got not diplomatic. He'd got second citizenship for the baby. He went to Italy, to the Vatican, to meet the you know, the man himself, Francis, Pope. Come back to England with a second citizenship. Vatican's got the you know, defence plane on standby. There's a footballer in Liverpool donated so many thousands for a Polish medical support team, air ambulance on standby at John Lennon Airport. So we've got, you dig the scene, yeah? The Italians are there, the Pope's there. He's got the second citizenship. They've got the birth certificate in a common law court. Yeah, we've got a footballer with thousands of pounds thrown at this to get it sorted, because it was an embarrassment. It was making people cry. Man was crying nationwide, worldwide, watching this poor family saying to the hospital, let us take the baby out, we're going. And the hospital said no. The hospital rang the police. I was there, there was over 150 police come out of that hospital at 11:30 one night, and I didn't video it, but I give you my word. Sovereign Smith was there, my right-hand man. Wow, we got there, and we found out there was the plane, the Polish medical team, a helicopter at St. John Lennon's, the Vatican Defence Ministry plane was waiting, the second citizenship had been granted, the certificates in a common law court, and we got there and they said no. And the family's like, what do you mean no? Well, did you know? You're not. The police said if you touch that property, that's their property, we'll call it, the child in law, in legal terms, in man's world, it's their property, it's their offspring. That child's an asset to that family. An asset comes under trust law. So when you have an asset to you, you have an asset in trust. So trust and equity. the rules of equity say that if you have a common law remedy, this is important now, Crow, you have a common law remedy in law, yeah, and it's being given to you. If you know of an equitable remedy, you need to look at the 20 equitable maxims, and this is the same equity for all those listening that don't know what it is. Every court in the world recognises equity and equitable remedies. You need to invoke it at the appropriate time. I can't give it you all now, but it's on our domain. And equity in law is above common law. It runs parallel with common law. And in the maxims of equity, it says that if the rulings, let me be careful, I'm doing this in the garden with no paperwork. Look, it's just straight from the heart. But the rulings of equity, the maxim says that if there is a clash in law, if there's a clash in law, the rulings of law, and there's an equitable remedy, the equitable remedy will prevail. And that only, right, what do you need to know next? Only man can use equitable remedy. So when you said about liens, yeah, you have to look at what area of law and jurisdiction and how that works and who it's on, because you wouldn't sue the American Police Bureau or the FBI. You'd sue Agent John X of the FBI or the Bureau or the, officer of District Columbia Police, whatever. You'd sue that man. You'd go against in his persona. You won't go against the establishment. So this birth certificate, the judge looking at what's happening, sees that he's got a second citizenship. He sees that there's a massive an army outside, man's outside protesting. The cameras are there, the world's watching. They've gone back to the court and said, this is what we've done. You know what the High Court judge said? Doesn't matter. It does not matter. The baby, your property, the asset, yes, is staying in that hospital. It doesn't matter that the Pope is giving you a second citizenship. It doesn't matter that the Italian Air Defence Ministry has got the plane on standby. Don't care that you've put your child's birth certificate, which is your property, into a common law court. Yes, and they said you now what was ordered now is private, but summary is the father was told, Crow, if he's in that hospital, where his property, child, and he goes in with so many meters of it, he can be done and arrested. He's to stay away. Yeah, they were left his property in a room, and he could see it struggling for life. He'd been ordered by the legal system to not touch it. If he was to get caught resuscitating, if he was to get caught resuscitating that property, and an officer or a nurse was to report him, he would legally be charged, yes, with assault. Now that's man's blood. Now, how does the legal system do that? And don't forget, we've mentioned the common law court, he put the certificate in. Was invoke a little thing called, what he failed to do was invoke a little thing called equity and find that in common law, which is where he was at with the argumentation, and if you do get time, please review that video that we did with Santos, just recent, but he went to court and he had a barrister, and he answered to the mister. The mum answered to the missus. They answered under public law, which is common law still, and this is what they were using. Nobody went private. So for the Americans and the Australians, as Romilly's told us, Romilly Stewart, if you go with the public, you don't get no remedy at law at all, really. It's pitiful. It's a joke. And you know why? Because you're in the public. When you've got property and you are man, and you want to argue it, you go private. And when you go private, we go High Court, Privy Council. That's where the power is. When you go to one of those courts and just judiciaries, they will address you correctly, and they will show honour. And they're still deceptive, and they use personage and barratry, which are crimes of the court. I won't go into that now, but you can get justice a lot more swiftly and effectively. It's still not a common law court as such, but you could get tried for, say, common law murder in a high court. It won't be in a de facto magistrates in a district, because they're not recognised in the realm of equality, equitable remedy. It's a first degree manslaughter, murder in the high courts, because that's the real place to do law. And you need to know, as a public person, how to turn yourself into a private man, invoke equity and manage your property in a private, or your claims and so forth. If you've got a remedy for your claimant, and you want to go to court and sort that remedy out, what if it's a private issue that you want to discuss? Well, you'll do your day in court. you've got a private issue. So sometimes a higher court will be needed, but for harm, injury and loss, then common law court all day long, no problem. Harm, injury and loss, theft, cheating, you know, ran me over, didn't have any insurance, you can sort all that out. We support that. But for some higher, more pressing issues, and this Liverpool thing, they did put the certificate in the common law court, and the judge didn't recognise it. We're not saying this to put anybody off. This is good that we're talking about it, and there's a lot, you know, of potential that can pick up on what we can demonstrate, the procedures of law and the rulings of it. And you need to know, because it's not me you need to listen to and trust, it's the maxims and the rulings of the laws and what laws there are. Contract law and you know, equity and criminal and civil, and you know, you've got tort of misfeasance, you've got lots of things you can use, a lien, you can go common law, you can go bring a claim on you that's made and turn it and get it in the private. It's entirely, you know, your choosing. You can be the victim or you can be accountable, but we don't ever tell you what to do. What we are good at, and our trust and family, is to give you options and to give you other options, you know, show you holes in the ship of which you might not have seen. There you go, I yield. I've finished.
Oh, I don't know what to say after that, David. It's masses of understanding.
It can be a little bit overwhelming, all this information, no question. For the average person, it takes years to get your head around this. And you guys, you and Crrow are both doing a great job of giving us at least a place to start, a really good, solid foundation. And I want to thank both of you guys for doing that.
Yeah, for my part, I've just brought guests on who had different points of view and could supply some sort of background that shows what they were talking about had been implemented on some level. What I find for myself is I'm not interested in legal fictions anymore. And David's right. There's a ton of different kinds of law. Things have become so perverse that I think that the average man or woman listening is just kind of fed up, right? But it is a bit ironic when you consider the idea of the straw man, because we know that's true now, don't we? There's really no arguing it. But the truth of it is all the debt in this world you've ever accrued, it's your straw man's debt. There are so many things about this that make it appear to be like a house of cards waiting for a windy day to tip it over. And for my part, I hope the windy day is coming. And again, I can't tell you for sure what's what, but I'm looking at a real live common law court in Scotland. I've just had some guests on that have gone a number of different ways at things. We're waiting to see what pans out, what can be replicated, what actually works and then can work again. And when we start to know these things, I think that's a path to travel. But almost certainly when you have this monolith of law, what we call law, put together by judges and lawyers and the crowns. And here's an interesting thing. You know, the other day I looked up, I was wondering what Esquire stood for. You know, whenever you see an attorney, they put Esquire after their name. You know what it is? It's an honorary title that's above gentleman, but below knight. And if that doesn't tell you who stacked the deck with regard to law, I don't know what to tell you. But the system's gone foul, and we'll cover it as we see it, and hopefully we will see people succeed. And when we do see people succeed, we will try to cover those successes, particularly if they are successes that can be replicated. So that's where I'm coming from. And as David pointed out, this can get so complex that it would take a lifetime to even begin to understand. And that's really why I have no time for the fictitious idea, the fictitious side of the law.
You can see why they get away with everything, because even their way is just so complicated. And there's so many things people just won't fight it. Some will, won't they? They'll get solicitors, but you know, generally we won't understand anything that we're being told.
Well, there's a whole other language, isn't there? You know, in the United States, people like to call it legalese. I think Robert Sproul, who we just interviewed for the next episode, called it pig Latin. Yeah, truly, when you go into a court and you hear those people speaking, you think they're speaking English, but they're not. You don't understand what is being said.
It's code, isn't it? It's all code that you don't know.
Well, it's unfortunately it's not really code, because as David pointed out, anyone could pick up a Black's Law dictionary and begin to define these things. But that is the problem, and it's what you pointed out. Who the hell has time in their life to put food on the table, to get the kids off to school, you know, all the things we got to do? Who has time to pick up a damn Black's Law dictionary and learn about the perversion that these institutions have put over us all? For my part, I don't think this can go on forever, but I'm almost certain when people start having successes, we will see this massive monolithic system try to fight back in some way. Goes without saying, right? But there is a there's a universal law that I have never found fault with, and it's this idea. We see it over and over in the pre-echoings of false flag events or any number of things where we're pre-informed that this thing we probably wouldn't agree to is about to happen. The idea is this: you can't just trap a human being with no possible way for that human being to escape. If you do this, you're violating some kind of a universal law. Places like the Talmud have these ridiculous ways of trying to fend it off, these acrobatic explanations that I talked about last time I was on. But what it comes down to is truly, if living men and women have rights, and truly there is a natural law, a common law that they have access to, they can't be cut off from that without ever hoping to find their way back. If they do, the people who are blocking the path have violated a universal law. And in any court you walk into, I am reasonably sure in their little level of things they believe in, God is always on top. And yet what they are doing is subverting that very idea of God. And if you want to take that out to its logical extension, you know, even things like the Bible say God is everywhere. And by the way, you have temples on the side of your head. You see where I'm going here. If truly those courts are concerned with honor, which they claim they are, and truly they hold the Creator as the highest, they can't block these paths. In other words, it's a bit like the Truman Show. Christoph at one point says, "What? I'm not doing anything wrong to Truman." If he truly wanted out of this place, I mean really truly wanted out of this place, he could go. And Christoph held on to that idea in that movie all the way till Truman was standing there with his hand on the door, still talking to Truman, not believing he would open the door. It's a poor allegory to use a Hollywood movie, but it's a bit like that, isn't it? And so from my point of view, if enough people are concerned with how we're living now and they stand up, no matter which way they try to get there, I think we'll begin to see some change. That's my hope anyhow.
Yeah, can I just ask you something? I mean, obviously David explained a little bit about how he got here. I mean, maybe David didn't know, because we all know you as the Lunar Wave Man. So how did you get from doing all that into this? What was it that made you?
Well, you know, it's a funny thing about lives led in public, isn't it? You know, the lunar wave's what people chose to focus on. But since I've been a very young individual, I've been challenging just about everything. You know, nothing, I've never really changed what I do over many decades now. It's just maybe what people are publicly aware of. And for my part, you know, these are the things that matter. The United States is becoming a very difficult place to live in. The police, the rules, the amount of money people have, it's all getting more difficult all the time. And to me, that's what matters right now. And these things that we try to address on the show try to point a direction where maybe we can work on things to make it better. Because Lord knows we're, you know, tomorrow's not here yet, and nobody knows where we're going to be when it gets here. But for my part, I'd like at least to try to work to make it a better tomorrow. Because for quite a while now, we've been slipping. And it seems since, I don't know, maybe around the turn of the millennium, many minds have been coming online, waking up to the realities of what a human being can be. And so hopefully the right time for all this is now, and hopefully we'll see a change for the better, where human beings aren't treated so much like cattle and numbers and slaves that can make the crown or any other institution money. If that's any kind of an answer.
May I? Yes, that was a beautiful, beautiful answer, brother. What we're seeing over here is man is committing suicide over fictional debt. So the next little bit, I'll summarize this, guys, but you know me, I am known to waffle, rein me in if need be, but man's committing suicide over debts. We've mentioned about a little baby there, baby. listen to the phonetics on that. No, it was man's blood, we'll reference it as. And we failed in a mission. We chatted to a Roman Catholic priest there that was at the hospital. We put him on notice. We rang a brother called Steve, who does law and stuff like that, and we got him to interpret in Latin as well, and certain other things about how we could put this guy on notice and turn him into the eyes and ears of the Holy See and the Vatican. Life lost is this topic, because when the suicide gets reported to us, Crow, that we now know that there is no money, and if you get a dollar bill, or you're in England, Anglo United Kingdom, and you get a banknote, a Federal Reserve banknote, the House of Windsor and Rothschild, or the Federal United States of America Bank, the central banks as we know them, they are debts, they are promissory notes, right? Okay, as we see them, this is, I put this on myself to say this. I, David, am making this claim under the Bills of Exchange Act, 1882 for England, Anglo, and the promissory note, negotiable instruments, the gold backing was removed, the Gold Insolvency Act, America can reference that as well. The silver backing was removed in 1960s for Anglo, sterling silver backing removed. So the paper notes are no longer backed by precious intrinsic value, as we call it, intrinsic. So what's backing these notes that are flying around in circulations? Dollars, federal notes, quantitative easing. We're not getting onto the crypto, but the paper in England. Pull yourself out a banknote, please, and see that it's printed on the sides with a number. That serial number is not to identify that banknote as a banknote. That's a debt. That's a registered log debt, like the number on your birth certificate at the top right. It's a bonded, document. It's all about money. You're bonded. You've been bonded, and the money is bonded. The water through the certificate is the watermark. The currency. The banks in nature control the current of the river, and they cut the flow. And the banks in England and the world control the like this. How can I put it? David is the creditor, and Jeremita is the debtor. Now I have a birth certificate and a certificate of birth, and I have two thumbprints, and I have an equitable asset. Now, when I wear a 21 Crow in England, you get United Kingdom, you get a birthday card with a key on it. Everybody in Anglo will know this. So the birthday card with a key on it denotes that you are at an age of something. The age is called age of majority, not maturity. That's what maturity is, when you're legally responsible to take amends from the court for being naughty. The age of majority is when you're a man and you can become not an esquire or a squire, but you can claim your estate, your allodial title, Crow. Allodial, that's what you have when you have the outright, control of the property, and you own it. You've got access to it, not a right of use to it. So these debts that we're seeing, and austerity in England, when we know that all these estates with the surname and capitalisation is your living estate, and you can claim that and you can use it. So we're telling you that there is no money because there's no gold and silver, so there's only debts. So what we're saying about an estate, when you get these charges from the courts and you want to indemnify a bank bill, not a bank, a gas bill, electric, municipal charges and things like that, you get a little statement with a printout on the bottom. And what we're realizing at a vast rate, yes, is that this little printout on this letter is not actually a bill, it's a statement. And because you've got a social security number for the USA and international, issued by the International Monetary Fund, known as the IMF, and Anglo brothers and sisters, we have a national insurance number. A national insurance number. So that insures your exemption number as well, and you can endorse, rather than paying with your sweat equity, the notes in your pocket with the numbers on for debts that aren't actually credits, the debts, and they're monitored. You can pay with a signature and the national insurance number on that electricity, gas and note, and you can put thumbprints on it, and you can sign as the settlor, as I mentioned before. So where we've got this debt and money in misery, you can have your trust, you can have access to it, the card at 21. So these trusts though tie into the testamentary trust that I've mentioned, and Santos has, and Romley, about the CQV and the 1455 testamentary trust, and the families and everybody that's gone round the world. Now I'm going to put a quick video on This document is like a 30-page document that I've done myself, and it's uploaded to our website. You've got things like this, which are crests, and these crests contain signals. Like there's 3 crowns stacked up here, there's a couple of crowns here, and you've got the Vatican and the Pope's hat just here. This is the Franciscan crest, and I've looked at this and drawn this because of Santos and I know and Romley Stewart, and I've looked at, that's a res, that's the property in your trust. In a trust you have a triangle that sets up the trust. You have a beneficiary, you have a trustee, and whoever owns the property is at the top, the king position, set law. Now, there's like the trusts that I'll explain. If you check my channel out later on, I'm not desperate for viewers or anything. We don't need help. We're on our way and we're doing fine. This is just a little note for everybody else that, you know, we are onto something quite universal here that will, it will outline how the, you know, the trusts are created, and the executors are like the Roman office, and the grantor is like the pontiff or God, and the people now, instead of the world, the people are property, and we call them chattel, and that's your national insurance number. So to close this up, we're looking at accessing your national insurance number. In America, you call them treasury routing numbers, and you call them treasury direct accounts. You'll see Harvey Dent, I think, for one of them, that was big on the scene last year about this, but it all went a little bit wrong with the Heather getting arrested and certain other things that I'll not go into now. But that business there, and people trying to use promissory notes to pay for Maseratis or Lamborghinis and getting pots of gold, you can't do that until you've done the correct claims using a notice of intent, a claim of right, ecclesiastical deed poll. Like a deed poll where you change your name legally, you've got your ecclesiastical deed poll, and that's what you'd use to tell the creator you're no longer under the control of the Vatican, assumed as a person. And the last little trust I want to show you is in the Vatican, in the catacombs, they have gold, don't they? Which is represented in this trust here. Well, that's what we're going to get access to, because you, Crow, and all my lovely brothers and sisters out there are worth your weight in gold. Now, you haven't got your weight in gold because you've had it put to one side in a trust. And where you've heard all these rumours before about there's this, and you can get access, and you can buy this, and you can do this, and you can, and you get that key from 21. You get to the age of majority, a bit like Johnny Depp, Pirates of the Caribbean as well, where he's talking about the treasure chest, and only the pirate's blood can open it. They put clues in a lot of the films for you. We've cold the camera still because it will do you in. I'm in my kitchen. Yeah, this gold, basically, I'll explain it to you like this, as we understand it now. The trust. Okay, there was the planet given to us is what we call dominion by the creator, Lord creator upon high. He then said, let me find a trust for you, to the Vatican, apparently, that you can look after man. And the Vatican went, all right, we'll look after man. What we'll do is we'll make the promise to look after man and pay for it, and we'll tell all governments internationally that we've got this trust. And all this trust is connected to the birth certificate. So your birth certificate and your certificate of birth, them numbers on them are important, because when a baby's born, the live born certificate, here it is, the live born certificate goes to the Vatican. Now there's a reason why all these statisticians did that. You have the creator, grantor, God, sorry about that, it's generic white man, I don't agree with that. Then you have here the world put in as the res, and you have the executor, Venice, through, you know, it says the exact words, Franciscan friars. Then you have here the trustee of the trust, which is the Roman pontiff. And over here, the beneficiaries of the trust are the people. That's correct. And the world is the property. Now, they didn't tell you that. So what you now need to know and find out and learn from us, if you would like to, and we learn from you, is that you can get access to that pot of gold, and you have got a trust. You know, I'm not going to tell you all the words and what it is, but if you'd like to explore and digress, we get access to that with these thumbprints. So when we sign a document, you sign a document and you just put your signature at the bottom. Well, what you can do is put thumbprints on the left and the right, or just, you know, sometimes just one, but 2 thumbprints in red, never blood, because they'll think you're loco, come to get you because, you know, you got red thumbprints there, and you'd sign it, set law. And you might sign that on a notice of intent, understanding, and claim of right. That's on our .com right now to download for free and stuff, but I'm not here to advertise that, but I can mention it. You need an ecclesiastical deed poll, an evidence of life, and then an allodial title claim. Now, you'd mention this and notice stuff like this. You'd write it out as a autonomous man. You'd write it out by hand. Yeah, the man is autonomous, and you'd autograph it. You wouldn't sign it. That's your autograph. When you see a celebrity, you ask them for an autograph. So you sign it as an autograph. The autonomous man has authorized it, and it has been autographed, and he has, you know, done everything there as a living man. And then you present that to the members of state, Vatican, defender of the faith, and you get remedy for maintenance going forward for your CQV. And you know, this is where we're looking to go next, Crow, to release the austerity and the pinching and the finance and all this misery, because everybody has got a trust, and it's held in the Vatican, and it's represented by gold. In our opinion, we're going to prove this very soon, I hope. And the trusts that have been put into the world, which is the, you know, the Master Trust and the other subsequent trusts, and the motu proprio of 2011, are there to guide you and to tell you. And yeah, there is a consciousness shift, and there's more to it than you know, than a pot of gold. And you can offset and discharge and use private money instead of public money, and you don't need to commit suicide, because there is no debt, like there was no American Civil War, because before there's a civil war, you have to have proclamations, and after a war, you have to have a peace treaty. So please look into that, USA. Your civil war that's been proclaimed perhaps wasn't a war, because there is no peace treaty, therefore, ergo, no war. But shh, I didn't tell you that. I yield.
Wow.
Wow. Look, you asked what's backing the money. If you break this down as simply as you can, what's backing the money is mind. People buy into it. That's what's back. You could ask the question, what makes a living man or a living woman free? It's your mind. I'm not really interested in interacting with criminals who had enough power to be criminal and then to make up all this nonsense that they attempt to enforce on us. In my view, when enough people change their minds, their house of cards is going away. I don't want anything from them. They can keep their debt. They can keep their gold, imagined or otherwise. I just want to be a living human being. And for me, in the world we find ourselves, with everybody waking up, if enough people change their mind, we don't have to lift a finger. Their house of cards falls down. This all relies on the fact that we agree to interact with these fictions, these nonsensical things, this debt that's piled on us, that, you know, just all the things I could point out right now about the society. When enough people change their mind and realize that there is no common sense in it, and that it is basically criminal at its base, they'll quit participating. When that participation happens to stop, they've got a big problem. You know, it's like all those old cheesy Hollywood movies where the gods are sitting up there on Olympus and they're bossing the people around, and then one god says to the god next to him, what's going to happen when the people quit believing in us? You know, and then Zeus will look back and say, then we won't exist anymore. It's like that. And I think that's the path that I'm interested in taking. I will watch all these legal things, but man, I don't have enough time in my life to read Black's Law Dictionary and get into, you know, all the fictional nonsense these criminals have put up. That's where I'm coming from, man.
Yeah, I agree. It's not our system. We use common law. It's easy. We keep it simple. We keep it fee simple. And you just said that you I respect that. You just said, I hear this so many times, I want just to be alive and living. Well, you are alive and living, and that's it, point blank. You have a fiction of which they affix to you, and that's it. You know what they're doing, and you know who you are. So if I may just say, to complement what you've just said, then it's about your competence and knowing something. That's all it is. And you have a divine person, Crow, and your soul is competent. I will always say that and think that about every man, you know, and your soul and essence is that thing from the greater divine from you. And I don't know how it can be incompetent or classed as that. It's your soul and your spirit, brother, and it's an insult to suggest such a thing. So we often find that it's not us that's at fault, it's the system, and it looks trustworthy, but it turns out not to be trustworthy, you know, barristers and lawyers and so forth. And I don't know, this legal system, it tricks our minds. You're right, I'll give you that. I like that. Search and look at what's his name now?
Well, David, I would point something out to you. When you have people, You know, you can point to things in this world that hide from the light of day. Those men in the black robes in those courts, what's backing them is one of those things that hides from the light of day. In my view, everything that people who hide from the light of day have created, I don't want to interact with it. I don't want any part of it. But you see, if everybody listening to this just finished listening to this episode, had dinner, and then said, you know what? I'm a free, divine, living man or woman, and that's that. Decision made. If enough people did that, all this other nonsense just stops, because then all of a sudden people are faced with common sense. They quit looking at the world as, well, I'm expected to do this, or the police think I should do that, or the tax man thinks I should do this. All these things fall by the wayside because a living man or a woman says, wait a minute, is that common sense? Because if it's not common sense, I'm not engaging with it. And that's been part of the problem with this whole law series, because so many people have been sucked into the kind of perverse language and perverse customs. And again, that's really why I'm pinning some of my hopes on this common law court that's been set up in Scotland. That's common sense. Every person in the world can understand that if they don't injure someone else or infringe on their sovereignty, no law is broken. That's
no victim, no crime. No victim, no crime. That's it. No victim,
common
no
sense
crime.
world.
Sorry.
But the majority of us are going to wake up every day, and every day another 80,000 laws are going to be put on the books, and common sense dictates there is not a living human being who could possibly understand all the laws that are passed every day. And that is part of this criminal kind of nonsensical, without common sense system that has been put here by criminals. So for my part, I try to bring in common sense, and I try to encourage people to free their minds, because if enough people do that, I think the house of cards falls. So there's my part.
David, can I just say that your microphone's making a bit of noise as you're walking around? We can hear it.
No, it does that. The wireless one. 1 minute. I'll fix that.
Yeah, it's
should be better. All right.
Cool. Thank you, darling. It's such a deep thing again, isn't it? I mean, simple person like me, I don't know what to say. Listening to David and Crow, it's just so deep.
You know, you're going to have people who attack these issues that we brought up about the law head on. There are people who lead. There are people who do things. The majority of us out there are not the leaders, and the majority of us out there are not going to go into the law head on. But it doesn't mean each one of us can't contribute. When you're going through life, if you simply just look at a thing and say, wait a minute, is there any common sense in this? Why am I doing this? Why am I being asked to do this? If you do these things in your life, it's not as easy for nonsense to be pulled over everyone's eyes all the time. Maybe we'll see some change here. Maybe a common law court will bear some fruit over in Scotland. Maybe other people who are going at it in the way David is, or some of the guests we've had, maybe they will show successes that people can replicate. But for the most part, every single person listening to this, they can say, you know what? I'm never signing another document in black ink. I will never claim a title ever again in my life. I will not be a Mr. I will not be a Mrs. I am the living human being. For my part, I am Crow. I don't even know what clan I'm from, because it's lost to time, because I was adopted, and the state of California has prevented me from knowing these things. But for the people out there who do know, it's a simple decision to make, to be the living man or woman, and then to start to assess all this nonsense that's put in front of us. Because I am certain that if we woke up one morning and 1 million people in America said, guess what, we're not engaging in this nonsense anymore, the gods would begin to go away, because the mere little mortals have quit believing in them.
Yeah, that's good. If we all picked a day and you know, did something, you know, made a day of our own for the man, or for the just right and proper. We call it over here, we call it just right and proper. What? If it's not just right and proper, it's not cricket, Crow, and we won't be having it. Do you hear? Not on this watch.
I'm not sure I can follow that because where I come from, crickets chirp. So
Cheers. All right.
But anyhow,
yeah.
I want to say, David, it was nice to meet you. I kind of feel like we hogged up the panel here. I know there were other people, but I've got to wrap it up here. I've got a show coming out on Thursday, and I still have a few more things to get done. So nice to meet you, David. My apologies to the panel for picking up all that time. And Sun and Moon Family United, thank you so much for having me. And if I've got time, I'm happy to come back on another occasion.
Oh, it's been
Thank
a pleasure.
you, Crow.
Thank you so much.
Respect.
You didn't hog nothing
Thank you.
up. People have come here to listen to you and David talk. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Well,
Thank you, Crow.
but before I
Thank
go,
you.
I'll say one more time to everyone listening. If you care about the rights of living human beings, living men and women, go subscribe. Rob, new word ESS, Rob S. Channel in Scotland, who has set up a common law court. It's a real live petri dish, man. We're going to see, our children returned? Are they able to hold to account and hold personally liable the people who have participated in crimes against the people? We will see. If they get success, that's a hell of a thing, man. That is a hell of a thing. Anyhow, thank you all and have a great night. Bye-bye.
Oh,
See you later, brother. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Crow 777. Thank you.
Respect.
Oh,
Breathe.
yeah.
But listen, I have a closing thing then after that, sisters and brothers. What I will say is common law court, if you have a debt collector coming around your manor on your private property and they have committed trespass and you have no, they have no right to be there in the form that you have denied rights of access and you have put up common law jurisdiction applies on your property, which we advocate to do that. We have on our Facebook trust and on our website free downloads. Once you're in on the Facebook, they're free obviously because it's Facebook, but you get in there and you get the documents. There's over 450 and some of them do include police borderline rules apply. That's one notice. The second notice we advocate and use is common law jurisdiction applies exclusively. You'll be pleased to know. So I'm not against common law and I know what its limitations and uses are, and the removal of implied rights of access. So it's a notice of removal of implied rights of access. This is common law jurisdiction as well, and we promote and advocate that and use it quite well. And what this will do for you is when these guys come to look for the all caps and an alleged debt and they come and they see these signs, and the last sign that you put up, or one of the signs is another one, there's a fifth one, appointments, visitors strictly by appointments only, private property. So you denote that your property is private and that anybody that's coming to canvass or inquire is a visitor, and they are to be seen strictly by appointment, and they will then write to you and make an appointment. So that will give you a bit of breathing space and it will give you a lot of protection under the beautiful common law. So I can't believe I didn't say that when Crow was on, because he maybe thought I was anti-common law, but we're not. We love it and we use it. So that's just something extra.
I don't think he felt that because you talked about it quite a lot. Could I just say one thing? Astral joined us in the middle of that, and I just, because you were talking and Crow was talking. Hi, Astral.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Yeah, I've been listening. Don't worry. Yeah, I was listening all night, actually.
Easy.
Whoa.
David, you're full of it, as ever. But yeah, it's good. It's nice to hear again and again and again, Hammer it home. It's good.
It's really good. Thank you, David.
Guys, I love this. I think, when I was trying to be David David Getter Life, when I was doing that and I was roaming around and chasing the materials and clubs and speakers and ice cannons and boat parties and, living the life of sleeping in till 11 o'clock and not paying for anything and having a kind of a king-like, supposedly I was chasing a king-like status, but not wanting to work for it, not wanting to be honourable because of the money and the contracts and the terms. So we've swapped the records of the DJing for the public records of the law, and this is what gets me. I was on the 1s and 2s of the 1210s, and now I'm on the 1s and 3s of the sacred contract. So I live and breathe this, and I have resigned from a corporate international NASDAQ, you know, stock market floated company at 26.5 grand to do this and to get it out there, because the state has taken my property away from me, and I don't want this to happen to other fathers. Dressing up as Batman isn't going to achieve you nothing. Putting your birth certificate in a common law court, as far as I will estimate, because I've not done it myself, from what I've seen in Liverpool and have first-hand knowledge, it failed coming to a judiciary in a high court. So I've got a bit more of a, you know, all I want to do is let people know, that let man know that is, you know, alive. You're all alive. You always will be, and you're not dead. And
People,
yeah.
The whole point of this is you're helping people, aren't you? People are coming to you, and you're
Frustrating, yeah.
And you're helping them. And what are you? You're the not. You don't represent them. What is it? I've forgotten what it is already, but I know what it is in my brain.
You're a power of attorney or advocate or authorised agent, representative in office. Anybody can be an agent. Yeah, an agent. Yeah. But that was good with Crow. Thank you, guys. That was excellent. Yeah, I like that. I know a little bit about Rob, but I haven't seen too much of him because I'm focused in my own area, and I'm aware of the law that he uses. But I'm willing to chat with him or meet up, and we are got a meeting in the seminar in York on, you know, coming up in August. So that's common law and new Chartist movement, which we're not. So we do bend and flex and go and meet and you know, leave it open for debate and evaluation. We don't know it all, but we'd like to meet others and see what we can get together.
Amazing. And wow, I'm just a bit like, it's not that I haven't heard you talk before and I haven't heard you say these things, but just today I was just listening to it and I was thinking, oh my goodness, if I had to go to court, I'd need you with me. Oh dearie me.
What does the chat room say, or is there anything in the? I'm just going to look at the chat room now and see if there's any questions or feedback.
Listening, and yeah, there's chat room.
The chat room's bumping. I've been following it. Heather Raven. She came out with a really good one for the Rothschilds. Rot in hell, child. I thought that was pretty good. Rothschild. That was pretty good. Anyway.
Yeah, because you forget that nearly everything. I said code, but it is a kind of code, everything, isn't it?
Right. There's so much code, and the words have different meanings and in different places. It's just.
Yeah, I suppose.
Like Crow said, it takes a lifetime to get your head around it. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're left with thank you, David, and thank you, Crow, for looking into this. Especially David, like he's a bit like an equivalent to like a solicitor.
The paralegal, yeah, a solicitor is we would look at it as along the lines of somebody who sells their time for money. Now let's think, who else sells their time for money? Stands under a red light, called Roxanne. Shh. Yeah. Prostitution is the trade. Yes, I tried to be clever, but yeah, prostitution. It's we were called initially Sovereign Solicitors in November 2015 when I left YouTube and decided to be articulate and to start something up to look at the adhesion and tort and tacit torts of misfeasance in office by public officials in the Road Traffic Management Act and police officers using an emergency process to pull us up, to give us a financial fee, and that's a benefit to them. It's not a benefit to us to pay monies. And for further evidence, it's not from me, search a guy called Godfrey Bloom. Godfrey, bless him, the man Bloom. He's done videos about when you get fined money in England for on the motorway, they have a variable. They're making smart motorways, so when the orange light says 40, you don't do 70 anymore. It's a mandatory 40. If you trap on at 70 for so many miles, it clocks you and it tells you via a notice in the post that on such and such a day in the United Kingdom there was a variable speed limit on various sections of the motorway M1, and you didn't adhere to the traffic act and you didn't slow down. So whatever the reason is, you was governed by public statutory code and you didn't slow down. So this is where we looked at it and started saying, well, just because you've said that doesn't mean there's no victim and there's no crime. And we look at it all and just examine you know, how it is. And it's come a long way. It really has. It wasn't, like I said, I didn't intend on any of this. It's just that we set a family and a domain up, and we realised that solicitors weren't what we were. We was paralegals, if anything, or some kind of doctors of law. We was extrapolating it and comparing it and the various forms of it and the authority and the jurisdiction. And what I'd like to say to you before I finish is, if what Crrow's just said, then if he knows that he is sovereign, and he knows that in his, you guys know you are self-governed, you are governed, you're self-governed, your person is governed by the law, you're governed by your own consciousness and ethos and ethics. And if you know where you are, then why do you need to go through the whole process, you know, this process we're all on about? Well, the answer is you do not, because if you know who you and what you are, brothers and sisters, in essence, you won't have to prove anything to anybody, because you'll know you're alive, you'll know the system, and you know how it works. So it's the system that doesn't know. It's designed to grind on. They have such perversions. This is what they are, what I didn't say to Crrow. They're called perversions. Silence is considered consent. Well, that's not true law. We didn't make that up. That didn't come from the creator. So where's it come from? You know, this is something that the establishment and societies have invented. You know, we class it ridiculous. It's farcical, you know, when you contest it. And there's certain ways that you can cut through the system. You cut through the butter like a hot knife, and there's no ums and ahs. You know, you set your status and capacity. You will get justice.
That's why you've taken a solicitor on, if not to cut through because you're guilty, but you know, because you're innocent, and you get a solicitor for that reason. And that doesn't happen, does it really? Because they're messing around in their law.
A secret Black's law, a Black's law of a Black's book dressed in black. So what have we got there that's a commonality? Black. What do we associate black with? Well, it's not love, I'll tell you that much now. We don't have, you know, I'd let you decide that. What do we associate black with? Nightmares comes to mind. The Shadow Man. You know, quite a lot really, but nothing good, nothing positive, beautiful, nothing wholesome, nothing just right and proper. Yeah? Are you with me? I'm not trying to put things in your mind, but this is what they're using and what it's called. Yeah.
That's right. It's dark.
Satanic, a cult, secret. Well, something that's secret was called a cult. We thought a cult meant black magic. Well, black, there we go again. What's that word did we say, everyone? Black. You see the commonality, black magic. So when I find out as an indigo child that law is auricular, and I'm like, what? Auricular? It sounds like testicular. Are you sure about that? Let me check that. Auricular. It begins with AU. And when I've gone through Chiron Last's back catalogue on YouTube, and I've looked at the phonics and the definition and the implied meaning of all of this from the you know, the Phoenicians, the deaf Phoenicians, the definitions, you find that all words beginning with AU represent what? The gold chemical symbol on the periodic table of elements. Authority, autograph, as I said with the notices and stuff, and Crrow was right. Don't sign in black ink. Don't write a notice out in black ink. Blue or purple, I would suggest you look at. If you're in our Facebook trust, we've covered all these topics, and we're going to transfer all this to the .com. So if you want to be in public, you can find it on Facebook. If you want to be private, we'll download all of our 750,000 posts over 3 years onto that .com domain over time, as you can imagine, in importance, and you'll find all this there. Codes, papers, A4. Did you know A4 is a military graded size piece of paper? Probably not. Newsflash. There you go. Next time you print something, go to your printer, look at print settings. You know, when you change your paper cassette, and have a look. A4 legal. A4 letter legal. And it's like, okay. And yeah, A4 is a military graded piece of paper as I see it at the minute. Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
That's really something.
When you're in a court and they say all rise, they say all rise because only the dead can rise. So when you rise, you've just given him authority, because he said all rise, you will rise like the dead. You rose like the dead. So therefore, you know, I won't rise. And then they'll say stand or contempt. Well, okay, I will agree to stand up, but only to be honourable and polite. I am not wavering any rights, neither am I forfeiting. Now I will stand. You see, if there's not, you know, and that's it. That's how you've got to. It's sneaky, isn't it? It's very sneaky. It's not very honourable. It's dark. Yeah, I yield.
So much information to get through here. I mean, you've been at it. You got 100,000 pages of this stuff, and the rest of us, man, we have to follow your lead. Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like I know nothing now. Yeah.
Listen, I know nothing. I know
I've
Jack.
heard you talk about this.
I know nothing. See what you're doing, Karen and Sun and Moon. You're facilitating us. As I'm not a leader. I'm maybe a little bit of a teacher, but I'm not a very good one because I'm scatty and, you know, hyper. But I do my best, and it's the information that counts and the quality of it. So we've designed a .com for you to go on there and join up and sort it out. It's £12 in English credits for, you know, anybody that's international. But in England, if you Anglo United Kingdom, you go and buy some beer and some fags. That'll cost you about 20 quid for a pack of fags and a beer. So, you know, for 12 English credits, it's a small amount. And what we want to do is we want to get the membership up so we can get hundreds of thousands on there. Then we have a trust fund and we dedicate that fund to a trustee, and then they would be in control. So David can't run off and embezzle it. And, you know, like all these charities that say, give us your money, we'll feed the poor, we'll get, you know, buy a poppy and Oxfam and everything else. It's scandalous. So to safeguard it, we'll use this trust technology to protect it, and we'll also use it to show you guys what a trust is. Example, Flat Earth guy asks his brother if he can borrow the car for the week. His brother says yeah. Well, now Flat Earth guy is now the trustee of his brother's car. His brother said yeah. His brother's is the settlor, you know, and he's given it his brother, and he's trusted him to look after it. He's benefiting by his brother having it because now it's looked after, it's getting maintained, and he hasn't got to worry about it for a week. You know, he didn't have much room on his drive, so Flat Earth Brother's got his space back on his drive. The vehicle, property, Iron Horse, because it's private and not commercial, is taken off, and you've got somewhere to travel or drive if you're commercial, Flat Earth guy, and you've become the trustee of that property. If you've got a shop and you're selling items, merchandise, and I come in and you say $5, £5, please, and I give you $20, 20 quid, and I leave, and you don't shout me back, well, that's dishonourable because you've just become a resulting trustee of my money because I gave you too much. Now you've got two options here. You pocket it and put it in the till and say nothing, which is an unconscionable act, or you could say, hey, up, Mr. Pal, Geezer, whatever, Pom, you know, here's your change. And then you've been honourable, you see. So it's not just legal trust, it's everywhere. It's just about, you know, how we interpret our environment. And we're showing you a different environment. It's not, you know, duality, and it's not all doom and gloom. You've got power, and we're going to return it back to you. I yield.
Oh, well, amazing information. I hope the chat room have taken some of it in, or maybe some of the people in the chat room have understood a lot of it because they've looked it up themselves. Amazing, David. I hope you really enjoyed today's hangout.
Yeah, it was cool.
Do you know what? I think even Crrow777 was a bit like, whoa.
Yeah, well, he's been dealing with this for weeks at a heavy pace. He's had a couple of guests on his show. And I've listened to most of it, and there's just so much information, and we'll get through it, man. Just like we're getting through the flat Earth thing, man. We're figuring this out. It just takes. Look how far we've come with flat Earth just in 3 years. I mean, look at where we're at. We've got these scientists running for their lives, and we can do the same thing with the legal system. We just got to.
No, sorry, let me mute.
We got to do the same thing with the legal system. We just have to put our energy into it, and we will figure it out. And David, Crrow, everybody's doing their part. Karen, thank you.
So much of it, isn't there? There's so many different parts of it. It's not just one thing.
It's just like the flat Earth thing. I mean, look at all everybody's put in this tremendous amount of scientific work, and
you know what it is? It's like a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
But each piece of puzzle is a complete whole. Great. Listen to David.
Big house of cards.
It is a house of cards.
I want to show you this last bit of paper. The triangle at the top, you have a divine law, Okay, and in the middle you have natural law.
That's it, yeah.
There we go. Divine law is at the top, natural law is in the middle, and positive law is at the bottom. And you're part of the top one, your divine law. And divine law, it says, is the highest law followed by the natural law. That's the middle one. And then the positive law is the bottom one. And the positive law is for your persons, your men and women. The middle law, the bottom law, men and women, we'll say persons, sorry, because I'm going to get you confused. Persons are positive law. Admiralty law, maritime law, administrative, contract, international, they're all forms of that rubbish law. It's all rubbish at the bottom, you know. There's just think of it as there's law for blood and there's a law for corporations and policies and stuff like that. And then above that, there's the law of God, you know. So, you know, it just depends how you identify who you think you are. How you position yourself within all of that, and to make it easy for you, we just say you are alive, your heart beats, you have blood, you know you are alive. So that's half of it. When they ask for the mister, when they ask for anything like that, you know who the mister and the misses are. And you know, if anyone asks you for your date of birth, well, your date of birth is hearsay, everybody. It's hearsay. So you have no date of birth. Your date of birth is the year. Just say the year. When they say, what's your full name is your given first name. They want you to give the trust name. There's a reason for that, you know, and that's how you would start to encompass it. And common law, we all follow common law, and if it's anything other, then ask for proof of authority, claim and jurisdiction, things like that, you know, and that will help you out a lot. That will make it a lot simpler, I hope.
Hey, that is a
I
great.
need a few more lessons.
No, that was good information.
Yeah, I need a few more lessons to understand everything that David was saying.
Yeah, we all need a few more.
You need to keep it simple, yeah. You don't have a date of birth, sister, brother. You know, you have, you know, it's hearsay. You know, if they want a date of birth, they're asking for the person, all right. If they want a surname, they're asking for the person. If you go to a hospital though, and you've just fallen down the stairs and you've just knackered up your knee, and you hobble off to hospital and they ask you for your date of birth, then give it them, because there's nothing you've paid into a system, the tax system, the national insurance system. You're due to get fixed without paying, so get fixed. But you know there's a benefit to that. You see, there we go. You've made a contract. You've knowingly contracted with the hospital. We'll stick to United Kingdom because it's simpler, and we get it free because, you know, well, it's not free. Adjustment, you've paid for it. You've put your contributions in through your sweat equity. So you've contributed. So you're due your service, and you get that from the trust. What is it? National Health Service. It's a primary care service provider trust, and it's held in trust. So that's how hospitals are managed, with a trust and a trustee. Schools are managed with a trustee. Yeah, I think whenever you see a trustee, start thinking, oh, that's a trust. That's what Dave's on about, trust law. Oh, that means that it's this, that, the other, you know. But there are public trusts, because a hospital and a school are public, and they have public trustees. But our trust, which is an express private trust, oh, if I've done it right, it'll stand the test of time, and it's private, and it's governed by the Trustees Act 2000, and the trustees are governed by, you know, the same law as all trustees are governed by. There's no difference in it, but yeah, we will help you, and the videos that we've got will help you. And you know, with guys like Crow and Rob and Steve and me, Richard Ansar and whoever else we come across, Romley Stewart, you know, we're not dropping names, but it's good. Those Australian guys, they're pretty sharp. You know, we've got a lot of love and thanks to give to them. They've really helped us out. So the glossa and the dogma, that's what we've mentioned tonight. We didn't explain. That's different. That's the Latin language. Whenever you see all capitals in a document and it says you must pay this money by, and it's so in all capitals, you've got Latin and ancient Latin there and dog Latin. That's correct. So from what Crow said about Rob, he sounds like a pretty sound guy, and I've got a lot of love for that and what he's doing, and I will catch up. I need to be informed. I don't know what's going on. I'm too busy, but you can take a debt collector who's committed trespass upon your property after doing what we've said and recording it and getting evidence and take him to a common law court and make it stick that he has broken English, United Kingdom, Anglo, all of it, common law, and he must pay for trespass and criminal trespass. If you've got evidence of that and he's operating on a fake warrant that hasn't got a liability order attached to it, it hasn't got a judge's signature with a wet ink signature, and it hasn't got legible name of the judge, and there's no warrant, and it's not an indictable warrant, then get ready. That common law court will rinse that agent. He will rinse him, honestly. So that's what I mean. It's got potential. I see it. It's for some things it will work, but it's got its limitations. You know, judges are bonded and stuff. You know, they have a limitation, and the court capacity will help dictate that. And some of them, if you're going to rinse someone for criminal charges, you think they want to have it done in the public? Well, yeah, there should be in the public, but sometimes you need to go private as well. Like, what if there's children involved and you're in a common law court? How do you protect them? Well, the children, we need to go private common law then, don't we? Well, is there a private common law? Oh dear, the law's just got complicated. David yields. Shh.
Sorry, the background, they're jumping up and down, people with the footballs going on. I can hear the people shouting when things are happening. Amazing. We've been going for nearly 2 hours now. It's such a deep sort of subject. You've covered quite a lot in there. Do you think it's about time we ended?
Yeah, that's a power session for information.
Yeah, pound.
Yeah, that's a lot there. That's good.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good to go. We call these heavyweight hangouts. That's what we're calling these. You've just created a new type of hangouts, heavyweight hangouts. Yeah. Sorry, I've done your head in. Sorry, I tried to be reserved again, but you know me. Sorry.
You go, man. You keep going.
Who's scoring?
Oh my God, they must have scored. The whole of Thatcham screaming.
Who's playing? I don't even know who's
that was
playing.
really weird. I heard all these people, good, like forever. People screaming. You must have scored a goal. Or nearly scored a goal.
I don't even know who's playing.
England are playing. Anyway,
must have scored.
Very much appreciate all your time, David, and everything you do. The link to your channel is in the description. If you want to put any information in the chat room. And thank you so much to Crrow777 Astral, who's just joined us, Patricia, Flat Earth Dude, and
thank you.
David. Oh, did you hear that? There you go. Did you hear that?
I can hear that.
Sounds like fun.
Is it penalty and we won? Because that's usually what happens with the football anyway. England won. Oh, I see. They must have just scored a goal before the end of time, and then that's the whistle. Yeah. All right. Okay.
I only wish, can I just say, I only wish that man got excited and disinterested about more important
things. Shit.
You know, this really pains me that half the world, possibly half the world's eyes are on a square box with men half naked running around kicking effectively a pig's bladder with all these billions and billions of euros and dollars and pounds in all these football players' bank accounts, and yet children are still starving. I can't do it. I really can't. I'm not trying to be negative.
No,
the world was perfect. You know, I've even stopped watching Formula One because I feel guilty. I can't even wear that anymore. I'm like, you guys, I'm not trying to make you feel guilty, but for me, I'll tell you now, I'm not happy inside, you know, with all this money and these, you know, Saudis and what they do.
Outside right now is going absolutely crazy. Someone's turned their television right up. What did we do? Wow. Qualified to the semi-finals or something? Can you hear that? Can you hear the radio? Good gosh. Anyway.
No, I'm with you, David.
Yeah, I'm sorry, David. I mean, we understand that now, don't we?
So many more problems, you know. Let's put our focus into getting this legal thing figured out, getting out this flat earth thing figured out, and we have to change it.
It goes hand in hand. It's called deception in law, deception of natural law, deception of, you know, these are crimes against man.
But the thing is that they're not going to like any of it. They're going to work even harder to stop all this. You know that, don't you? The road is not going to be easy. Otherwise, it would have happened by now.
No, we know it's not going to be easy.
It's not easy. All right, David, I've been putting your links in the chat. Hopefully you get some hits over
thank
there.
you, Flat Earth Dude.
What's your main, David, what's your main website?
It is www.splspro.com. splspro.com. That's where we're migrating into the private too. Yeah, soon now.
Shoot, here
It's on.
Oh, they've just turned whatever it was down. Oh.
SPLS. Sierra Papa Lima
SPLS.com.
SPLS PRO Papa
PRO.
Romeo Oscar PapaRomeoOscar.com. That is Sierra Papa Lima Sierra Papa Romeo Oscar.com. If I'd have done it like that, you see, it'd have been all right. Sorry.
All right. This is great. I'm going to put that in the chat.
Oh, thank you, Flat Earth Dude. Anyway, it's been a great hangout again, and thank you for everything. Thank you, David. And yeah, we'll say goodbye off air, but we'll say goodbye on air. Thank you, everybody in the chat room.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. It was a great hangout.
Flat Earth hugs from us.
Power hangout. Wow.
Yeah.
Right. Good night.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you, guys. Peace and love. I'll stay on. Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Bye, darlings, in the chat room.